Welcome to GFT, Galactic Figure Talk, a podcast about Star Wars and Star Wars action figure collecting.
Awesome, yeah!
The reason they're 3¼ inches tall is because the first mock-up figures that I made were Fisher-Price Adventure People.
I will freeze your body in carbonite forever, Han Solo! Not so fast!
We finally launched 6-inch when I felt the time was right. We needed a new spark.
We started selling all of the action figures through the fan club, and our most successful was the Cantina Band. That was enormously one of the best-selling items we've ever sold through the fan club.
Whoa! Darth Vader!
I used my nephew as a hand model on the Wampa box. He's the one with the little hand that's in there.
It's Kenner's new Star Wars action figures. Now, welcome your host, Chris B.
Welcome to another episode of GFT Galactic Figure Talk. My name is Chris B. I'm your host, and this week we got a couple of things to talk about, so let's do it. Alright, so it's been a couple of good days for Star Wars action figure reveals, specifically for the retro collection, the vintage collection, and the Black Series lines through the Gift the Galaxy campaign that's currently going on. But before talking about this, I wanted to bring something to you guys' attention, which I forgot to mention on the last podcast episode. And that was that Dan Madsen, who used to run the official Star Wars fan club, he posted a letter to his social media account, which he had sent to Lucasfilm back in the days, back in like 1996. About what Star Wars action figure they should do for the fan club. And as we all know, this turned into the Cantina Band member, but it was pretty cool to see how the communication was taking place back then. I mean, those were real letters written with a typewriter. There's no email communication at that point. And I found that to be really interesting, specifically seeing the Star Wars Insider logo, you know, from the 80s, 90s on the letterhead. I thought that was pretty cool. It was also pretty remarkable just how direct Dan was in the communication and what he demanded from Lucasfilm that they do. And I thought it was great. It was, you know, it's really rare to get insights into what was taking place back in the days. It's a little different nowadays. There's more transparency nowadays. But back then in the 80s and in the 90s, I mean, you know, hearing about those behind the scenes workings is really, really rare. So I really appreciate that Dan posted that. I'll put a link to that post into the podcast description so you can check out the letter that he wrote. But let's talk about some Star Wars action figure reveals. And this past weekend, the Farthest From convention took place in the UK. It's a smaller convention specifically for vintage Star Wars collectors, but all the big fan sites were out there. I think Jedi News was out there, Fantatrax was there, Generation Skywalker covered the event, the Vintage Rebellion podcast was there. So all the big names that we've gotten used to over the last decade or two coming out of the UK were in attendance covering the event. And the Steve Evans panel that he held at that convention is up on YouTube on the Fantatrax YouTube channel, so you can go and watch that. But what was interesting is that Steve took the opportunity and announced new figures coming to the retro collection. And from what I've seen in my community, the response was tremendous. They're going to do a Rebel Fleet Trooper, a Han Solo in Stormtrooper disguise, Luke Skywalker in his ceremonial jacket. They're doing a Sand Trooper. They're doing Dr. Everson. And they're doing Walrus Man, aka Ponda Baba. And those are exactly the figures that I've been wanting to see ever since the line started. I'm happy to see them finally go this route. And, you know, out of those 6 figures, 5 of them are figures which Kenner during the 70s and the 80s never produced. So it's an extension of the original line, and that's where I think the retro collection really shines. That's where the market is, I think, for this line, and I think that's exactly the audience. You know, the newer entertainment is better suited for TVC and for Black Series and what have you. I also enjoy retro for the new media, but this is really what I was hoping they would do for retro, continue the story that Kenner started back in the days and dive into those figures that they never gotten around to. The Rebel Fleet Trooper, specifically Han in Stormtrooper disguise, those figures are just, it's awesome. I mean, I remember being a kid and actually looking for a Han Solo and Stormtrooper outfit on the shelves because I had just gotten Luke and I just didn't know whether, Han was ever made or not. And even though the back of the card always had the figures on them, well, sometimes they didn't. Right? I remember that Luke in Stormtrooper disguise, for example, was a figure that I never saw on the back. So anyways, I'm really, really happy that they're making this. They have not announced availability yet, when this is going to go on pre-order. They didn't announce a price. They also didn't say whether those will be single figures or if this will be another 6-pack. So I assume it's another 6-pack. But once, the information is available and they actually send out a press release, I'll be happy to share it with all of you guys, of course. Now, let's talk about this morning, Gift the Galaxy week number 5. So that means we only have 1 week left, which is next Tuesday, for new Star Wars action figure reveals being part of this Gift the Galaxy campaign. And for this week, they had some vintage collection reveals and they had Black Series reveals. But let's start out with the Black Series first. And they revealed a 2-pack based on the Shadows of the Empire novel / video game / everything except the movie. And yeah, they're doing a 2-pack with Princess Leia in Bouge outfit and Luke Skywalker in his Imperial Guard outfit. And I'm excited about Luke. That is a figure in 6-inch which I don't have yet, so I'm all up for that. Leia in Bouge outfit, in my opinion, unnecessary. We've had this figure, I think, going back to 2015 or something like that. So I feel like this figure's been in circulation for a good 10 years. And you guys remember they made the Archive Black Series figure where they shortened the figure because the original release was too big or too tall. So they shortened it. And I also think they updated the portrait with the face printing tech back then for the Archive line. But that's a figure that's been sitting at Ross for $6.99 or $3.99 or something like that for the longest time. And now she is back. They just revealed those figures, so I haven't really had the chance to really compare these images yet. And I'm still waiting for the press release to come through to get these high-res images so I can do a deeper dive on it. But somebody did mention to me that she might have a new head on it. So we'll see. But anyway, so that's the 2-pack based on the Shadows of the Empire. I think it's pretty cool because, they've already announced Shizor coming to the Black Series line. And I think there was a leak for Dash Rendar also. So this is pretty cool looking. Now, I'm hoping that they'll make a Luke Skywalker figure in his regular outfit that he wore in the Shadows of the Empire, because that looked really cool. But yeah, all right. So they're diving into Shadows, which is cool. And then for TVC, for the 3 3/4-inch line, they had 3 reveals, which from what I saw in my community made a lot of people happy, with Captain Gilead Pelion, Grand Admiral Thrawn, and Joruus Thebath. Specifically, Joruus Thebath, I think, is going to make a lot of people happy that he's coming out in 3 3/4-inch. And for me personally, Pelion is interesting because that is a character or an Imperial officer which they have not made yet in 3 3/4-inch, so I'm all down for that. And, I can already see them doing a repack on a Mandalorian card, right? And, yeah, they're repacking Thrawn here on the new card back. So, yeah, if you're a fan of the Sawn trilogy from back in the days, this is all for you. And kudos to Hasbro for putting those figures out. Now, I've updated galacticfigures.com already with all the images of those figures. So if you go to the vintage collection, use the filter on the top, go to officially announced figures, and you will see those 3 TVC figures listed there already. They've also revealed the VC numbers already, so we know exactly in what sequence they follow into. So, and there you have it. So 6 figures for the retro collection that came out of the UK over the weekend, 3 for TVC, and then 2 figures for the Black Series line. So overall, I would say that's a pretty good few days, you know. I'm obviously most excited about the retro stuff in this case because it feels like something I don't have yet. All right, and that's where I'm going to wrap up this episode of GFT. Now, I've been hard at work getting all these action figures added to the website before the year is over so we can do our top 5 vote. Still waiting for a few figures to get here, specifically from the Black Series 6-inch line for the Skeleton Crew. I pre-ordered those through Amazon when they were down to $20 each, which is, you know, obviously a great price for brand new figures. But they keep pushing them back, and so far only one of them has arrived from Amazon. So fingers crossed that they'll get here before the year is over. So anyways, thank you guys for listening. And I'll catch you on the next one.
It's a wrap for this episode, but the next one is just around the corner, so make sure to subscribe. Meanwhile, have fun browsing over 4,000 Star Wars figures on galacticfigures.com, the Star Wars action figure database. The website helps you look up and identify Star Wars figures. Leave your own figure reviews in the comments, or check out photo galleries, figure info, news, press releases, or event coverage from New York Toy Fair and Star Wars celebrations. Thanks for listening. Check the links in the description, and remember to subscribe.